My name is Giselle Sanchez. I'm a graduate student here at UCSD. I am interested in culture and emotion, mental health, and conceptions of well-being and resilience among adolescents and migrant populations.
Okay, so my name is Ellen. I am a doctoral candidate in the anthropology department. My research is on how broader communal but culturally shaped conceptions of addiction shape available treatment options, as well as the experience of those treatment and recovery. So I work in 12-step and religious rehab centers in Tijuana, Mexico. I look at how treatment is experienced there and how those experiences, which are shaped overall, those two particular models are sort of formulated by, or influenced, I should say, by the broader cultural conceptions of what addiction is, who falls ill to addiction, and what is like the prognosis.
So I'm Bonnie Kaiser. I'm a new assistant professor in anthropology in the global health program, and my work looks at cross-cultural experiences and understandings of mental health and illness, specifically in Haiti and Kenya. So most of my work is focused on how people understand and communicate about mental illness, and that includes things like adapting or developing assessment tools for use in Haiti. Sometimes I work on what's called idioms of distress, which are specific social and culturally resonant ways that people experience and express distress. So how can we speak in the language that people use to understand their own distress, and then use that for communication in clinical settings and to improve interventions.
My name is Olga Olivas. I'm a Mexican anthropologist, and I have been doing research recently more focused on drug use in both sides of the border region. So it relates a lot on mental health, not just because of the situation in itself of using drugs, but all the mental and emotional situations around the use of drugs. So I think it fits a lot with that. And lately I have been working with research focused on emotional well-being with adolescents, as well in both sides of the region. So it's not necessarily something that is related with a mental health problem in itself, but an emotional well-being, how they are doing in ordinary life or daily life with emotions. So it relates a lot with mental health.
I'm Jyoti Mishra. I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Psychiatry. I founded the Neural Engineering and Translation Labs, which essentially designs new technologies based on our understanding of neuroscience and then translates them to communities, especially serving mental health. And we work with technologies both locally as well as globally, and the technologies are all digital and can serve as diagnostics as well as interventions, and that's how they apply to global mental health.
Hi, I'm David Grillotti. I'm an adult and child psychiatrist and an associate professor of psychiatry here at UC San Diego. I do many different types of research, and one of them is global health, and mostly in the context of HIV, or starting working with organizations who serve people who have HIV. So I have projects going on in Ukraine and South Africa, and I started my work really in Haiti and other parts of Southern Africa.
I'm a daughter of immigrant parents, and so I kind of learned growing up kind of this notion that mental health really wasn't a thing, that it's not necessarily something equal to physical health. And so I think when, like in high school, when I started feeling like a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress, I didn't really know what I was feeling, and I didn't really have like a way to kind of understand it and kind of know what was going on with me. And so kind of expressing that to my parents too, they were kind of like, yeah, I don't really know what's going on type of thing, you know. So I kind of realized that there was this like kind of difference between the way in which kind of they perceive something that's mental health and kind of the way that I was experiencing and seeing it here in the US, where all of a sudden I had classes and like I kept seeing like in media, you know, like this is what stress is, and this is what anxiety is, and you know, there's something that's called anxiety attacks and panic attacks, and this is what you may be experiencing. And it was so different for me, and it was really kind of hard to talk to my parents about it too, because they kind of didn't really know either kind of how to deal with that. And so that to me kind of like served as a reflection point to kind of assess that this was part of my environment and that this was happening. And so it made me really interested in kind of studying how immigrant populations relate to their bodies, like the experience of their bodies, their emotions, and how they perceive that, and how that then influences treatment possibilities or you know, just conceptions of well-being.
One of the projects I've worked on is in rural Haiti, where I've worked for about 8 years. And this was a mobile clinic, specifically a mental health mobile clinic. And it started because when we were doing our research that involved a community-based epidemiologic survey, so we were in communities trying to identify people potentially experiencing mental illness. We would refer them to the clinics nearby that provided mental health care, and what we found was people might go for one visit, or they might kind of call the doctor to make an appointment, but there was very little follow-up. And once the providers decided, well, we have a lot of patients in this area, let's just go to them, and started doing this mental health mobile clinic. They were seeing 50, 60, 70 patients in a day with a small group of providers. It was really bringing the community together to kind of support people and bring them for care. While they're waiting, they're kind of talking together and supporting each other. And I think it made people realize that this is something that's real, that can be helped. They were actually seeing people in their community, you know, get better, experience recovery. So I think it really showed that this is something that's overlooked, and it's not because it doesn't matter, it's because it's not real, but it's because it hasn't been prioritized in terms of funding, in terms of research, in terms of programs. But I think this was a really great success story, and it showed us and it showed the community how important mental health can be.
Well, that it's part of human beings, like having this is part of our way of experiencing the world, and we cannot deny that it's going along with another health conditions. So it's to recognize first that it's part of ourselves, and then when we recognize that it's part of ourselves, we can be aware of how is that part of ourselves right now. How are we doing with our mental health conditions and situations? Because then we will be able to talk about it and to not being ashamed of going through an emotion of sadness or something that is part of our daily life. So make it or know it as something natural, as being part of ourselves.
Mental health is a really important part of our health and well-being. So there is no health without mental health. The sad part is that many people do not have access to good mental health care, despite the fact that many people in the world have mental health problems. Most of the problems that people have can be easily solved. And part of the effort for global mental health is to get mental health care to those folks, whether they be in some underserved communities in the United States or underserved communities around the world.
I would like the CGMH to be huge in terms of numbers, in terms of interest, in terms of just, you know, overall a large amount of people involved, because I really think that it's very important and very applicable to everyday lives.
In terms of the future for the Center for Global Mental Health, I'd love to see more undergraduates from beyond the health and social sciences get involved. I think that there are obviously great opportunities for students in anthropology, for students in global health, for students in public health, and in general the health sciences. But global health can also benefit from students in engineering. We've got a project going on right now that uses mental health tech, so that involves engineering, designing apps, editing apps, and any projects that might include something like climate change and health and differential risks for health would it would benefit to have students from Scripps or from the biological sciences involved as well. So global health I like global health a lot because it's an interdisciplinary field, so I'd love for more undergraduates and graduate students who come from different fields to get involved with the center.
I really hope to see a lot of thriving programs around campus and around the San Diego area in terms of really building kind of interventions locally. I think we can bring a lot of the tools that we've used in global mental health in terms of how do you translate and communicate best about mental health and illness. How do we reduce stigma? I think we can bring a lot of that here. So I hope to see a lot of successful programs in that regard. And I just hope that we also bring in more really passionate students and faculty who are working on this research, globally and locally, and build a thriving community.
Well, I think the Center for Global Mental Health is on a space that could help a lot to the research in different contexts. But at the same time, I think that that's a challenge, because think about mental health and think about it globally. It's also to think about plurality. So different ways of understanding mental health, and not just understanding, but also treating mental health could vary in different contexts. So what I would like about this center is it's an opportunity to have research in different contexts, but at the same time to visualize and to recognize different approaches to mental health.
I'd like to see that CGMH continues to bring in more diverse faculty who are working in several different nations. We already have contributors who work in Asia, in Africa, in Southern America, and also in California and other parts of the United States. And we have several projects going on in these areas. And I'd like to see more interdisciplinary collaboration happen in CGMH, more students and fellows become part of furthering its motto over time, and potentially have a teaching program that furthers the cause of global mental health.
I think there's a lot of potential for growth in the Center for Global Mental Health. We still have a lot of people who do not have access to care, but we have a lot more in our tool belt, a lot of different strategies that can be easily used to improve the situation around the world. So I think in the future we should leverage our expertise here to really get into communities, empower communities to do something about the mental health problems that they face.